Starting at
I can do it since I'm moving to the borough.
Jennifer, did you find it?
What?
Did she find her speech?
No.
Okay.
She's gonna read it off the phone.
All right.
Hey Tyrone, your kids play baseball, right?
Big school.
All right, yeah. It's
Having a great day today. It's a pleasure to meet you. And hopefully we get a chance to work together again sometime. 100%. Awesome.
I'll see you later. Oh, I won't see you later, but you know.
Yeah. Well,
I don't have.
You got my number.
I don't have an audio feed from the board. It's just a webcam.
my number. I text you the information in my house. Anything comes up, give me a shout.
Corey, can you give me another chair, please?
Yeah, just take mine.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
I'll get another one for myself. Take this one. You need it right away. Take this one. I'll get another one for myself.
Hear me, Chris. Damn it. RTFP, yes. Yeah, when I get that adapter, yeah. Yeah, because it's all coming through
What time are we
HDMI.
thinking Memphis going up? Because it's just wondering. Do you know?
1 o'clock already? Not everybody's here. I only
I
have
got
4
an
people
adapter
here.
coming I got an adapter
Oh,
coming like
okay,
half
so
an hour.
Brian,
So I'll plug in when
you're going to
I get
signal
it.
to us when we should come up, right?
Again,
I'm trying to find out
you
now.
sent audio, right? Okay. Audio's going now?
This way you blend in and it's
All right.
you know,
Hey, Tyrone, you should be getting audio through the
So you'll
RTFP.
sit, Corey, is this going to be okay if I let someone over there?
Brian, the people who haven't arrived yet.
All right, so I'm going to have you sit here.
TA, do you want us to?
This way, Corey, on the right hand side.
Oh, okay,
But
okay.
the problem is the cradle point is not going to all the
If you
reception.
need anything, you let me know.
The
I'll be
route
sitting
to
one
get out online.
Oh, is that why my mom can't get the channel?
What channel?
She's on Spectrum.
Oh no, that's not
What channel are we on then?
It's so self-sufficient.
I'm saying that the
Oh, that's
cradle
not
point.
this issue. I get it.
JPEG? JPEG?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you to the COVID Memorial Remembrance Day here at Forest Park. We would like to invite all of the committee members to please come up to the stage area, and all of our special guests, please do find your seats here in the bandshell area. Once again, committee members, we're inviting all of you, please, to come to the front of the bandshell, and all of our guests who are here joining us for the memorial today, please, we would like to give you your seat up here on the bandshell area. Thank you very much. We will be starting shortly. Thank you.
I got, oh, you got it done. Yeah. Thank you so much. I was saying, I don't know what I did.
All I know is I've gotten tired and I think just exhausted watching everyone else run around.
No, everybody.
They got their
Not as
steps
young as I
in.
used to be.
You know, I'm always wondering, you need to find his chair.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
If you guys can be seated, we're about to start.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, some more of those, that. I'll be right back.
Everyone need any water?
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, how are you?
Joe.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn. How are
Hey,
you?
Jocelyn. Pleasure. Beautiful day.
It is. We definitely looked out, even though the wind died down from this morning.
It did.
So are you by any chance State Senator Joe?
That's what they say, yes.
Okay, very good.
A pleasure.
He plays them on TV.
Yeah, exactly. And on weekends.
I may be in
He's
Manhattan.
known me since I was like 18.
Oh, okay.
At least.
Well, that's kind of
At
good.
least.
Hopefully it makes, negotiating good things to happen much easier to
Are
deal
you the
with.
master of ceremonies?
I am.
See that how that works? See that? Thank God for a program.
I know, my gosh. Would it be all right if I take a quick photo with you? Oh my gosh.
Mr. Pro-
Have the big
President,
guy take
thank
the
you.
photo.
Sit.
Come on.
How's that?
It's fine. We can just stand.
You want that?
Yeah,
Sure.
please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Borough President.
Never too big to do a little thing, right?
Thank you,
You
Jocelyn.
should never be too big.
Never forget where you came from.
How's it going?
Good. Hey, you gotta get to one of your things.
Oh, yeah. Yes, Jocelyn. Right, I'll go behind this mic. Oh, that would be great. We're just having the Babas come in right now, but Brian would like to start. Okay. So I think we're going to have to just make an announcement for everybody to take their seats because we're going to start the program. And yeah.
I'm fine. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Senator Dabo, hi.
It's Joe. Pleasure.
Oh, I got one. Thank you. I'm Amy Rodriguez. I'm co-chair with Brian.
Thank you.
I'm behind the scenes doing
Thank
all
you
the
so much.
logistics.
Can we make an announcement for everybody to take this?
Yep, she's doing it right now. So
And then we
I'm
begin?
just doing the invisible work.
We're sending the nukes that way. They're like, oh, we're sending the nukes that way. Oh, we got one. Got you guys. Yeah.
Mic's not working. Guys.
No sound. Oh, 1, 2, okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you formally to our COVID Memorial Remembrance Day here at Forest Park. My name is Jocelyn Burnell. I'm delighted to be your master of ceremonies this afternoon. At this time, we would like to ask all of our guests to please find their seats amongst the empty rows on the outer part of the bandshell area, because in the center are the special memorial photos of your loved ones. We also ask all of those who are currently in the aisles, please find your seats. Thank you very much. Today, we're here to hear some stories of remembrance. We're also here to hear some prayers. We're also going to be listening to some ways that we have shared with each other our combined loss. So for this time, I would like to open our event this afternoon with words of remembrance from Brian Walter.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Queen's COVID Remembrance Day. On behalf of myself and the rest of the committee, Assemblymember Rajkumar, Senator Adabo, and Queensborough President Richards, we welcome you and we extend to you our deepest condolences for your losses. I wish I could say that a year ago I could have possibly imagined myself here, but that would not be true. May 1st, 2020 was a far different day than from today for myself and my family. A year ago today would, unbeknownst to us, mark the halfway point in my father's fight against COVID. I took him to the hospital on April 22nd, and the monster would take him from us on May 10th. Our COVID story is like many of yours. Zoom calls, a roller coaster ride of updates from doctors, and the constant unknown of what was coming next. And in the end, the heartbreaking loss of a life that should have never been taken. My father, John Walter, was not only a Queen native, but lived here all of his life. If he was here today instead of me, he'd probably joke that he was here to welcome the Indians. Losing him took some humor, some joy, and some magic out of this borough. And it also robbed the Mets of a diehard fan. Today, these empty benches which stretch before us are some of the Queen's residents taken away with my father far too soon. They are a stark representation of those who should be here today. Unfortunately, though, it is not enough. For us to represent all the benches, we would need over another 625 rows to represent the over 9,000 people that we've lost to COVID in this borough alone. Take a moment and think how far back they would be stretching. Then realize that is only one borough in one city in one country. It was truly our goal to reach as many families as possible to represent as much loss as possible. To those families who will find out about this tomorrow and beyond, I want you to know that just because your loved one isn't represented in a portrait here, you are not forgotten. I was recently asked to describe my father in one word. I instantly laughed at this impossible task, because how could you describe such a well-rounded, intelligent, funny, caring, and giving person in one word? His zest for travel, his humor, his passion for good food and wine, his endless love for my mother and my family alone would take paragraphs. I put this impossible task out of my mind and I began working on this project. And through it, I began collecting the images and names and began to peek into the lives of those submitted. The Glendale Girl Scout leader, the Queens Village fisherman, and the fishing boat captain from Middle Village, the deli owner from Richmond Hill, the community board leader from Forest Hills, the photographer from Sunnyside, the Korean war vet from the Rockaways, the mahjong player from Regal Park, and the priest from Jackson Heights. Fellow transit workers from all over Queens. People born and raised all in Queens like my father, and some from other countries far away from the world that made Queens their home. So many names, so many names, so many lives. And then one day, well, actually it was in the middle of the night where I lay awake worrying about this day, that word came to me, that one word that would describe my father: life. My father was life. My father was everything that one should be passionate about and love to do and love to see and love to eat and love to lead a magnificent life. All of these empty benches, to someone, each one of them was life. And that is why we are here. That is why no one taken from us from Queens or anywhere else in the world will ever be forgotten. As long as we carry them in our hearts say their names, and share their images. They will live through us, and they will continue to have life. Thank you.
Brian's story is like many of ours. And today might be either the first time we're going to share our story or many times over. We have folks who've lived through our agony and our pain. One thing that brings us back together to our families is the prayers in our homes and the faith that keeps us going. So now we would like to ask for one of our faith leaders to present us with a prayer. Our opening Christian prayer will be delivered by Reverend Father Patrick Longalong from Our Lady of Lourdes Roman Catholic Church in Queens Village. Father Patrick.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is truly an honor to be here with you, to pray with you, and to hopefully give you some kind of inspiration and strength during this very difficult time. This past year had been a stressful and emotional experience for many of us, for our frontliners, for families who at first were not able to be with their loved ones as they fight for their lives in isolation, for religious leaders who are not able to properly provide a funeral service and are in the cemetery almost every week to bury a member of their congregation, for migrants who could not travel back to their home country to bury a family member, and many more situations that many people are not aware of. It is not a secret that this pandemic is making the suffering of vulnerable people even deeper. We are keeping in mind the elderly, those with pre-existing conditions, the poor, the unemployed, and the migrants. We pray and urge our leaders to rise to the challenge of continuing to create a united community despite our differences. However, we know deep down that we cannot create real community without love. This love, seen in small and large gestures of hope and solidarity, is calling us to a new future and a new way of living. Our hearts may be broken, yet they are still full of hope because we have love. And the answer to this crisis lies in all of us and in our unity. As people around the world continue to struggle with this pandemic without the possibility of physical communion, with limited support, we have an opportunity to reflect deeply on what it means to be a community of faith. COVID-19 knows no borders, but neither do faith, hope, and love. In the darkness of this crisis, I truly believe that the Lord's light will shine brightest in each one of us, for as long as we have the courage to trust and make ourselves available to be instruments of compassion. So now, my sisters and brothers, let us lift our hearts to God, and we pray. Almighty and eternal God, our refuge in every danger, to whom we turn our distress, in faith we pray. Look with compassion on the afflicted. Grant eternal rest to those who have passed on. Comfort the mourners, healing to the sick, peace to the dying, strength to healthcare workers, wisdom to our leaders, and the courage to reach out to all in love, so that together we may glory to your holy name. In Christ Jesus our Lord, we say, Amen.
Thank you for that beautiful prayer, Father Patrick. Our next speaker is the first South Asian woman to be elected to state office in New York. She is in an area that covers Woodhaven and Glendale. A civil rights attorney, please join me in welcoming State Senator Jennifer Rajkumar, representing the Assembly District 38.
Good afternoon to my Queens family. Thank you to the Queens COVID Remembrance Committee, composed of neighbors who lost a family member to COVID and who have bravely led in the face of this great loss to bring our community together. This week, I introduced a resolution in the New York State Assembly, where New York State honored the work of this committee. The entire State Assembly paused in its deliberations for a moment of silence to honor our loved ones we lost to COVID in Queens. I welcome you to the heart of my district in this sunny Forest Park bandshell. This year, we grieved alone, but today we will heal together. Grief is a heavy box we carry. It is too heavy to bear alone. In this space of healing, we carry that heavy box together. We say to each other, "Let me carry for you what is too difficult to bear. I am my brother's keeper. Let me be the hands that lift, soothe, and carry you. Let me lay myself down and be your bridge across the river of pain and grief." Today we come together, open our hearts more to each other, and help each other. And to heal, we remember. We remember our loved ones we lost. A father who bought his daughter tea whenever she needed a boost to her spirits. A son who was the light of his parents' life. A husband with the perfect wry smile who shared your dreams. A grandmother who always knew just the right wise words to say. We did not have enough time with them. If only we had more time. One more year, one more day. But then we remember a tender moment, a small moment of love and care they gave you that lit up your life. That memory is timeless. It knows no limits of time. It is ever present. The memory sustains you. The memory bursts through its moment. It bursts through its photo frame in a yellow burst of light, lighting up your way. You remember words you can live by, a moment shared, seemingly so small, that means the world to you now. Many of our loved ones died of this disease alone, but I believe they died wrapped in the wings of angels. Angels who embraced them and held them. I do believe that. They were not alone. Our love was always there with them, and the angels were there. In grief, you can grapple with guilt, frustration, and sadness. I ask you to be gentle on yourself. In a dark moment, remember all the sunny days that your loved ones would have wanted for you. Thank you once again to the Queens COVID Remembrance Committee for their brave leadership in the face of loss, and to all who were brave enough to come today. Thank you to leader Brian Walter and his mother Peg. Brian lost his father John, a beloved member of the Middle Village community who always looked out for others. Thank you to the Cardona family of Woodhaven, who lost their beloved Mireya Varga Cardona. Thank you to Manpreet Singh, who lost her loving father Gurpal Singh, an immigrant from the Punjab who always brought his daughter a cup of chai tea when she needed a boost to her spirits. Thank you for leading in the face of loss. In the words of Maya Angelou, a great soul serves everyone all the time. A great soul never dies. It brings us together again and again. We honor Sharon Bascom, a Guyanese immigrant and Queens resident, who served for over 20 years as a public school teacher. Joseph A. Ferrugia, a 30-year FDNY veteran from Ozone Park, twice cited for his bravery, who served during the 9/11 attacks. Rashida Ahmed, a home health aide, who was active in empowering South Asian immigrants. Luis Eduardo Riascos, a 21-year veteran taxi driver who was known to work holidays and weekends to ensure that his children had a better life. Inderjeet Maharaj, 73, an immigrant from Trinidad, a train operator for the MTA for 27 years, who knew everyone on his block in Richmond Hill. Ms. Henriquez, a beloved wife and mother from my district, who I know through her grieving family. We honor the beloved father of Arvin Suknanan, Sugrim Suknanan, an immigrant who escaped political turmoil in Guyana, first living in Queens with a few friends and a dream, spending almost 40 years realizing that dream and gracing the world with his presence. We honor Teresa Terry Collins, a beloved grandmother whose family is here today. From here in my district's Forest Park bandshell, we send our love to all of Queens, to the entire state, to the entire nation, and to the whole world. Our loved ones are always on our minds and forever in our hearts. We remember them in everything we do. Their memory is a blessing that gives us purpose in living. Thank you.
For some of our families this year, we have celebrated a year of firsts. First, missed birthdays. First, missed Christmas. First, missed holiday. First, missed vacation. Others may have just lost their families recently, but no matter the time, we come today to share in that loss, but also to move forward. At this time, I would like to invite one such individual in our community to share her COVID loss story. Can I please invite Siobhan Naboa?
Good afternoon, everyone. Like many of you here, my family and I didn't just witness the pandemic from our windows. Sadly, we lived it. And although we find ourselves here today because of shared grief and heartbreak, we are also here to celebrate the lives of loved ones we lost too soon to COVID. On behalf of my family, we are here to celebrate the life of my grandpa, Tobias Noboa. If you've ever hailed a yellow cab in the city, you might have hopped into the back seat of my grandpa's cab. For over 45 years, he traveled from his home in Corona in the early hours of the day before you or I were even awake, and made his way into the hustle and bustle of the city. Despite the stressors of the day that a job like that can bring, that never changed the kind, generous, caring, and patient demeanor that defined him. He was 26 years old when he first left Milagro, Ecuador, and came to New York with a sense of adventure, for new beginnings, for a new hope and opportunity for his family. With sacrifice and determination, my grandpa and grandma pursued and achieved the American dream, proudly purchasing a house in Corona, where they planted roots that will cultivate generations of love. It became a home where throughout their 64 years of marriage, they raised 3 children that they loved very much, that they gave their all for. It became the home where he would pass down stories of a beloved Milagro, Ecuador, to his 5 grandchildren, and it's in that home that he witnessed with immense pride seeing his 4 great-grandkids grow up. While he battled COVID for 5 weeks, we held on to hope and faith he would come home soon. He never gave up on life, though. He fought to keep living with every last breath. Throughout it all, he kept asking for my grandma, more worried about her health than his own. That's just who he was, always looking out for others. On May 25th, he decided it was time, and he ended his brave battle. Although his physical presence is gone, his legacy keeps living in the hearts of his family and all who are lucky to know him and come across his warm smile. A door now separates us between heaven and earth, and one day it will open and we will see his warm smile again. We miss you so much, abuelito. Buenas tardes a todos aquí. Como muchos de ustedes, mi familia y yo no solo presenciamos la pandemia desde nuestras ventanas, lamentablemente la vivimos. Y aunque nos encontramos aquí hoy debido a un dolor inmenso y la angustia que compartimos, estamos aquí para celebrar las vidas de los seres queridos que perdimos por el COVID. En nombre de mi familia estamos aquí para celebrar la vida de mi abuelito Tobías Novoa. Tenía 26 años cuando llegó a Nueva York, con un sentido de aventura por nuevos comienzos desde su milagro Ecuador. Con sacrificio y determinación, mi abuelito y mi abuelita persiguieron y alcanzaron el sueño americano, comprando con orgullo una casa en Corona, Queens, donde plantaron raíces que cultivaran generaciones de amor. Se convirtió en un hogar donde junto a su esposa de 64 años criaron a 3 hijos con mucho amor, el hogar donde pasaría historias de su amado Ecuador y a sus 5 nietos. Y es en ese hogar que presenció con inmenso orgullo ver crecer a sus 4 bisnietos. Mientras él luchó contra el virus de corona durante 5 semanas, mantuvimos la esperanza y fe de que volviera a casa pronto. Nunca se rindió con la vida, luchó por seguir viviendo hasta el último aliento. A pesar de todo, siguió preguntando por mi abuela, más preocupada por su salud que por su propia salud. Eso es como él era, siempre cuidando de los demás. El 25 de mayo del año pasado ascendió a Dios y se nos fue. Pero aunque su presencia física se ha ido, su legado sigue viviendo en el corazón de su familia y de todos los que tuvieron la suerte de haberlo conocido. Te extrañamos mucho, abuelito.
At this time, Rabbi Ronald Broden is unable to join us to offer us prayers for our Jewish community members. If we can just take a moment in silence and prayer to offer them, our Jewish friends and family members, to be remembered for this solemn moment. Thank you. For the many people who have died this past year from COVID-19, a greater number of our community members have lived through it to survive and to have their own stories to share with us. This afternoon, we will hear from one of them. Can I please call on Chris Kocher from COVID Survivors for Change.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for having me today. I'm with COVID Survivors for Change, where we endeavor to lift up and support those who have suffered from COVID. And we're just so thankful to be here. And I want to send a special thank you to every family member who has lost someone, every person who has survived COVID, and a special thank you to all the committee members who are behind me who have done such incredible work. You know, we started COVID Survivors for Change close to a year ago because I saw firsthand the devastation that COVID was having in my community just up the road in Sunnyside. And we thankfully have not had experience directly in my family, but we had friends who had COVID. We had families at my daughter's school. And to look out, you know, I was thinking, reflecting, being up on stage here and looking out at the benches and the beautiful photos, the beautiful names that are up here, and knowing that some of these names that were nameless to me a year ago, now their loved ones have become friends that are like family to me. We held the first empty chair memorial in Washington, D.C. last fall with 20,000 empty chairs to signify just how many lives have been taken, to signify the way that COVID has disrupted our ability to even gather together. And then you look out at these empty chairs and the yellow hearts behind us that have the names of loved ones, and you think about the fact that we can't even continue to be unable to be together in person, to share the lives that have lost, the stories and the memories that are our loved ones. And so we come together today in grief, but also in our commitment to fight for change, to be in this time of sadness and mourning, to be a force for strength and resolve. And the people that have planned this event today, the families and survivors, have done such incredible work, and I'm so honored to be an ally in their movement and their effort to remember their loved ones, to fight for change, to be part of a force for good in a world that desperately needs it. And I think a lot about over the past year, we've talked a lot about the ways that people have died, and we're here today to remember that, but also to talk about the way that they lived. And Brian talked about his father so beautifully, and you're hearing so many other stories today. But that's the goal and the reason that we're here today, to remember and celebrate the way that their lives were lived and were taken too soon and needlessly. Tomorrow is Bereaved Mother's Day, and for those of you that are not familiar with that day, it's a day to remember mothers who were taken too soon and mothers who are grieving the loss of a child or the loss of a partner. And so we send special thoughts and prayers and remembrances to everyone who is living with that special burden this year. And as a final note, I would just like to share that with COVID Survivors for Change, we host a weekly support group called COVID Connections every Thursday evening at 9 p.m. We're hosting a special session tonight for anyone who needs additional support after what is a beautiful day, but also can be a very heartbreaking day. So that will be tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can find out more information about either of these programs by going to our website, www.covidsurvivorsforchange.org. And finally, we'll be hosting a special Mother's Day conversation with families who have been impacted by gun violence, who will share their stories of grief and loss and healing on Wednesday evening, in recognition that this Mother's Day will be especially difficult for people. So I just want to close by again thanking everyone for being here and for the beautiful work that you have done to honor so many and to give a space to so many more here today and around the country to celebrate and remember their lives of those that they love. Thank you.
Thank you for those words, Chris, and we do hope that those who would like to avail of this organization's missions and aims to please contact them. January 20th was a glorious day in Washington, D.C., not just for the significance of that day, but because we heard from a young poet laureate who shared the message that was so fitting for the time. Today, here at the Queen's Bandshell here in Forest Park, we will have our own opportunity to listen to a young poet laureate. The person I'm about to introduce to you is a junior at your college. She was Trinidad and Tobago First Citizens National Poet Slam champion in 2017. Poems has been written on social issues affecting youth and passionate about youth development. She's also careful with pushing forward the rights of women, people of color, and marginalized groups. Please welcome our very own poet laureate, Camry Bruno.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that my poem today inspires all of you, and my condolences as well. I would like to acknowledge why we're here today, and I would also like to acknowledge your strengths as individuals, as well as our strengths as a community in Queens. The name of this poem is entitled Nature's Survival Apparatus. If we could only stretch from the sand and hold the sunset and be comforted in its warmth without drowning in the water, oh, how we would never hope to see the moon or the sunrise again. No man is an island, but that's what it feels like. We will never know where we can be if we're not willing to sacrifice the risk to thread the unsafe water between two islands. Gives us no hope on what can be achieved. Rather, we wait patiently and hope the ones we have lost can kiss our cheeks. We get jealous and despise the future on what could have been, the privilege we hold in our back pocket, to be able to smell the roses again. We tend to lose touch, but never the sensation to feel, so it hurts. To find a new way to reinvent the invented. This is our survival apparatus. We are not supposed to live without touch. However, we have found a way to survive without it, because all we need to do is feel, a skill developed in the comfort of quarantine, the comfort in compassion, When another human's body can no longer provide you with comfort, we tend to go back to our own, find another way to heal, allow guidance from the trees and nature, how to build ourselves back up from seed. Despite everything, this flesh stands, regenerated through generations. This body is instruction manual and knows how to survive on its own. Our families have always known survival one way or another. If we could only stretch from the sand and hold the sunset and be comforted in its warmth without drowning in the water, oh, how we would never hope to see the moon or the sunrise again. Thank you.
For the community members who practice the Islamic faith, we would like to call on Zilfa Baksh of Queen's Hospital to offer prayers at this time.
Good afternoon. Peace and blessing of God be with all of you. I am indeed humbled to be here. Praise and thanks to God that make this day possible, that we could all gather here together and to comfort each other. I thank all the organizers who worked so hard to put this together. May God continue to bless them all. Loneliness is very hard. Myself being a chaplain at Queen's Hospital, when I make the rounds and there are patients sitting there, when you go into the ward and they feel so happy to hold their hand, to pray with them, to talk to them, to be there with them, was very comforting for them. COVID-19 changed that. As a chaplain, we were not allowed to go to the hospital if you're a volunteer. It was very hard for me to sit at home and see on the television what's going on in the hospital. Patient being there alone, dying alone. No one deserves to die alone. And the healthcare worker trying so hard, but may God bless them and help them. May God give all those who passed away a resting, peaceful soul. Please join me in an Islamic prayers. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, all praise for God, Lord of the world, the most compassionate, the most merciful, Master of the day of judgment. Thee alone we worship, and Thee alone we ask for help. Guide us on the straight path. Dear God, I ask for courage to face and conquer my own fear, courage to take me where others will not go. I ask for strength of mind and body to protect others, and strength of spirit to lead others. May I stay on the straight path and seek to avoid evil. May I never let down those who trust me, and may I show compassion for those who need me. And through it all, dear God, be by my side. Amen. We, from New York State Chaplain Task Force, we have a 24-hour compassion line. For those who need to talk, we're here to listen. I can offer you a card of prayer and a number you could call. Thank you very much for having me. May God bless all of you. Stay well.
Our next speaker is not a stranger to all of us here in the borough of Queens. He was a former city council member representing the 31st District, which covers the area of Far Rockaways, Howard Beach, to name a few. He was elected in November 2020 and is a fighter for affordable housing. And his goal is to revitalize our beautiful borough of Queens. Please join me in welcoming Queensborough President Donovan Richards.
Thank you. Thank you so much to those of you who've joined us here today, most notably the members of the Queens COVID Remembrance Day Committee, including Hannah Ernst, Karen Ernst, Elisa Famia, Rachel Perna Famia, Lori Gonzalez, Manpreet Kaur, Chris Kocher, Pablo Lopez Jr., Siobhan Noboa, Emlu Solomon Rodriguez, Jennifer Romero, Catherine Solomon, and to, of course, Brian Walter, whose father passed away on May 10, 2020. We say thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause. I'm deeply sorry to hear of each and every one of your losses due to the COVID-19 pandemic here today. That is why we're here, to mourn, to reflect, to remember, to offer comfort. And with that being said, I want to take 30 seconds of silence before I begin. Thank you. As we know, Queens was the epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic, unfortunately. Who could have predicted that Saturday, February 29, 2020, would have changed New York City and the borough of Queens forever? On that fateful day, the first case of COVID-19 in New York City was reported. A gentleman right here in Queens contracted the virus. We now know that this outbreak started long before that day, and we know that we had ample time to prepare. In fact, we had years. We were woefully underprepared, and that showed in the first days and weeks of the crisis as we all scrambled for gloves, masks, and face shields, exposing the scandal of our healthcare delivery systems. And again, we cannot mention this deficit without, in the same breath, praising our greatest asset, our human capital, our residents of Queens, who rose to the occasion. Not just the first responders and healthcare workers who deserve our special praise, but also our transit workers who, despite challenges, woke up every morning to make our trains and buses run, as well as our teachers, some who work remotely, and others who still went into the school building. Our grocery store workers who ensured we had the items we so desperately needed and still need. Yet, still with all that humanity going for us, on that day, February 29th, 2020, that last day of Black History Month, the racial disparities, the gender disparities, the economic disparities, the systemic inequalities of our society, which New Yorkers of color, women, and low-income communities always talk of, would all come crashing down on us. In the past year, we've lost over 500,000 people nationwide due to COVID-19, with about 7,500 of them from Queens, the most of any borough in New York City, and I think that number has gone up to 8,500, nearly 8,500. Parents, children, spouses, workers, friends, neighbors, leaders, we all lost. But the shame, the scar is on us all. We lost far too many due to these inequities which plague our systems and institutions. These deaths were preventable. Those deaths were systematic failures, not the science or the challenges of the crisis alone. We were not prepared. This past year, the pandemic did not show us anything new, but it did reveal how deep inequity runs right here in the greatest city in the world. and unfortunately, even in the most diverse county in the continental United States, Queens. The inequities did not just show face through health disparities, but the inequities showed their face in the penal system, in the business community, in our educational system, even in the governmental and civic institutions that impact where and to whom resources are allocated. This is why we launched an aggressive and ambitious plan to address racial and gender gaps that we see and feel in our systems and institutions. Our work often seems insurmountable, but we will move Queens forward, and with all of you, we will meet these challenges. Just as the initial days of the crises exposed our unique vulnerabilities, we continue to face difficult challenges. Even though there is new CDC guidance, especially as it relates to being outdoors, I would be remiss if I did not continuously preach what we heard very early on in this pandemic. We must follow the city's core 4 actions, including staying at home if you're sick, wear a mask if indoors, practice good hygiene and wash your hands, stay at a social distance from others outside of your home by at least staying 6 feet. We've also worked very hard because our loved ones will not die in vain. We will not be back here again. We now are seeing the vaccine supply increase. I'm happy to report that Queens leads the state in vaccinations. We hit the 1 millionth mark on this past Friday. But it doesn't mean we're out the woods. There's still a need for more mass vaccination sites. Our office was happy to lead that fight along with our Assembly member, Jennifer Rajkumar, as well as our State Senator, Joe Adabu, who are here today. Seeing everyone get vaccinated is welcoming news, especially since 1 year ago, we saw the trauma across this borough. I also just want to talk about where we need to go, because we are a very diverse borough with approximately 400 languages spoken right here in Queens. We need to have an exhaustive, multilingual, bottom-up outreach campaign to connect people who need the resources as well. We understand that overcoming historical mistrust of scientific and medical institutions, especially on the parts of communities of color, is not an easy goal. But the deep disparities revealed in the city's COVID-19 vaccination database are not just unacceptable, they are fatal. So we are continuing that work ahead. And as your borough president, it is not my job to simply be here to mourn with you, to make sure that we are never back here again today. We're going to talk about right now the need for more hospitals and more hospital access right here in our city. In a borough with 2.4 million people, we have just 1.72 hospital beds per 1,000 people, by far the lowest in the city. This cannot continue. In a borough with 2.4 million people, we have just 9 hospital campuses. Just in the last 12 years, 4 of our hospitals have closed, removing more than 840 beds and thousands of medical professionals, and leaving communities like Far Rockaway and Corona and Jackson Heights with even less access to health care. To accept this as the new normal would be to accept that 2.4 million lives here in Queens are not of equal value to everyone else. And I remember that when I look out here today, looking at your loved ones. This is why we are fighting with the same zeal of our healthcare heroes to greatly expand access to healthcare, especially in communities that have long felt the sting of inequality. This means pushing for more community-based health centers, offering preventative medicine, and keeping non-emergencies out of our crowded emergency rooms. This means advocating for new hospital construction and increasing funding to our existing hospitals, which are already doing so much with far less than they need. We need to think big and act bold. Let's make sure that if and when another pandemic hits our city, we won't be overwhelmed the way we were last year. However, with all of this information I shared, the loss of a loved one due to this horrible plague will never be forgotten. I stand with you today to honor your loved ones' memories and to remember their contributions to our borough, our city, and most importantly, to you. As I look out into this audience, and I know Emmeline Taylor is here, we lost a good friend. a brother from Rosedale, Jules Taylor. I want you to know that your memory will not be in vain, that we love you and we miss you. I'm reminded of a Priscilla Carroll, who is somewhere out there, who worked at Elmhurst Hospital, who gave her life at the height of this pandemic. I love and I miss you. To all of you out there, let's keep this fight going. But until then, may your loved ones' memories be a blessing to us all and to you. Thank you for being here. Thank you to this task force once again for putting this on. God bless you all.
We thank you for that message of hope for the Borough of Queens. We now would like to invite another member of our committee who has also suffered a COVID loss. She's here to share her story. Please join me in welcoming Manpreet Kaur.
Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru is all I remember thinking with every fiber of my being when I got the call at 1:01 a.m. on Wednesday, April 15, 2020. I was praying like I've never prayed before that my dad would be okay after going into cardiac arrest. He has to be okay. There's just no other option. And then at 1:14 a.m., my phone rang again. I put it straight to speaker. It was that very instant that my world crashed and burned. I don't even remember what the doctor said. I'm pretty sure it was some sort of apology followed by, we did everything we could. It doesn't even matter how he said it. It wouldn't change reality. My dad was gone. I'm not even sure I understood what that meant. To be honest, I still can't grasp that concept, nor do I think I ever will. It haunts me every day and every night. What was my dad thinking? On March 28th, I was at work because I'm a pharmacist, and of course, as the cards would have it, it was my weekend. That meant I was working 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., both Saturday and Sunday, after already having worked Friday. My brother texted me and said, "Dad can't breathe or eat. What should we do?" 911. That was my instinct, and so I dialed. I could barely form words or even remember or even explain to the operator what was going on, since I was all the way in West Islip and they were in South Ozone Park. There's a lot of blurs, but eventually my dad was taken to Jamaica Hospital. Nirbo Nirver, without fear, without hate. This line from the Sikh prayers is tattooed across my wrist, and I tried to live by it, but honestly, it's been so difficult to abide by it this past year. I never in a million years would have thought I'd lose my dad so suddenly and tragically and way before his time should have been. The idea simply never crossed my mind, so I didn't even know it was a fear of mine. Not until the updates I heard every day were poor prognosis and hopefully he improves. That's when the fear crept in, and I found myself praying every night, making promises and deals with this God I'm not even sure exists. Hate. How can I not hate? I hate that we couldn't be there for my dad. He hated needles and doctors. Unless it was me administering his vaccines, then he would tell my mom, "Kuch nahi hunda. It doesn't even hurt." I hate that we weren't given the option to FaceTime him. I hate that I never even got his phone back, so I won't even know if he left us any final thoughts. I hate that I couldn't get him a suit, his yearly birthday gift from me. He was always the first to send me a text with all these emojis at midnight every year. Now who's going to do that? He was always so excited when the concept of my wedding came up. Now when I'm finally ready, he won't be there. I really hate that my children won't get to sit on his lap. He loved kids so much that even our neighbors' kids called him Grandpa. Most of all, I hate that I can't call him when I need him. I'm filled with anger and hate from losing him, and he would not want that. So instead, I've been focusing on doing better and making him proud. I spent the last 6 months administering COVID vaccines in his honor. He always encouraged everyone to get their flu shots when I used to hold clinics at the Gurdwara, so I knew he would want me to help with vaccinating everyone. What I miss the most about my dad is his smile. He had this warm, almost angelic smile. It made your world light up and your days so much better. Hasi de mi bega, he would say. If you laugh, it'll rain. So now when it rains, I smile. I miss him every second of every day. Not a moment goes by that I don't think of him. And it breaks my heart that I'm not the only one going through this. That's why today was so important to me. It was important to let the world know how many of us are hurting from this very real virus. And I hope that it'll help us move forward by preventing more awareness. So please, mask up and get vaccinated so we can continue living our lives to the fullest. Now we're going to be followed with a Sikh prayer, which is known as the Ardas. It is it's customary to please stand up. If you can, remove your shoes and cover your heads. If you cannot, we understand. Thank you.
ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. Good afternoon. My heart breaks today to stand here and imagine the pain, the loss that the grieving families, the friends, and the community are going through. No word I can offer will take away that pain. Of those mourning, we might never know why such things happen, but can look up to God for comfort and healing as a nation and a community. We are standing in solidarity and convey our sincerest condolences to those offered by the pandemic. At last, I sincerely thank everyone who had taken their time to come join us today. I request everyone observe a moment of silence of the loved ones lost. And toward my mother language is prayer. ਬੋਲਣਾ ਜੀ ਸਤਨਾਮ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ. ਇੱਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਭਗਉਤੀ ਜੀ ਸਹਾਇ ਵਾਰ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਭਗਉਤੀ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹੀ ਦਸਵੇਂ. ਪ੍ਰਥਮ ਭਗਉਤੀ ਸਿਮਰ ਕੈ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਲਈ ਧਿਆਏ. ਫਿਰ ਅੰਗਦ ਗੁਰ ਤੇ ਅਮਰਦਾਸ ਰਾਮਦਾਸੈ ਹੋਈ ਸਹਾਏ. ਅਰਜਨ ਹਰ ਗੋਬਿੰਦਨੋ ਸਿਮਰੋ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਹਰਿ ਰਾਏ. ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਹਰਿ ਕ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਨ ਧਿਆਈਐ ਜਿਸ ਡਿਠੇ ਸਭ ਦੁਖ ਜਾਏ. ਤੇਗ ਬਹਾਦਰ ਸਿਮਰੈ ਘਰ ਨੌ ਨਿਦੇ ਆਵੈ ਧਾਏ. ਸਭ ਥਾਈ ਹੋਏ ਸਹਾਏ ਦਸਵੇਂ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ. ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਸਭ ਥਾਈ ਹੋਏ ਸਹਾਏ ਦਸਾਂ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਜੋਤ. ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਪਾਠ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਧਿਆਨ ਧਰ ਕੇ ਬੋਲੋ ਜੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ. ਹੇ ਨਿਮਾਣਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਮਾਨ ਨਿਤਾਣਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਤਾਣ ਨਿਉਟਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਓਠ ਨਿਆਸਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਆਸਰਾ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਿਤਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ. ਧੰਨ ਧੰਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਨਾਜ਼ਰ ਜਾਣਦਿਆਂ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਬੇਨਤੀ. ਅੱਜ ਨੌਵੇਂ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਧੰਨ ਧੰਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਤੇਗ ਬਹਾਦਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦਾ 400 ਸਾਲਾ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਸ਼ ਦਿਹਾੜਾ ਗੁਰਪੁਰਬ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸ਼ਰਧਾ ਭਾਵਨਾ ਸਹਿਤ ਦੇਸ਼ ਵਿਦੇਸ਼ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਨਾਇਆ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਉੱਥੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਿਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਕਰੋਨਾ ਦੀ ਮਹਾਮਾਰੀ ਦੀ ਭੇਟ ਸੰਸਾਰ ਦੇ ਜੀਵ ਚੜ੍ਹੇ ਹਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਆਤਮਿਕ ਸ਼ਾਂਤੀ ਦੇ ਲਈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੇਰ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ, ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ। ਹੇ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕਰਨੀ, ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਵਿਛੜੀਆਂ ਰੂਹਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਦੀਵੀ ਵਿਛੋੜਾ ਦੇ ਗਏ ਹਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਚਰਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਿਵਾਸ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਨਾ, ਆਵਾਗਾਉਣ ਤੋਂ ਮੁਕਤ ਕਰਨਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਭਾਣੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿਣ ਦੀ ਤਾਕਤ ਪ੍ਰਦਾਨ ਕਰਨੀ। ਮਹਾਰਾਜ, ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਚਰਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਹੈ, ਐਸੀ ਭਿਆਨਕ ਬਿਮਾਰੀ ਤੋਂ ਸਮੁੱਚੇ ਸੰਸਾਰ ਦੇ ਜੀਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਛੁਟਕਾਰਾ ਦਿਵਾਉਣਾ, ਸਰਬੱਤ ਦਾ ਭਲਾ ਕਰਨਾ, ਸਮੂਹ ਦੇ ਘਰ ਵਿੜਿਆਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੀ ਮਿਹਰ ਵਰਸਾਵਣੇ, ਜਗਤ ਜਲੰਦਾ ਰੱਖ ਲੈ, ਆਪਣੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਤਹਾਰ, ਜਿਤ ਦੁਆਰੇ ਉਭਰੈ ਤਿਤੈ ਲਿਓ, ਉਬਾਹਰ ਦੀ ਦਾਤ ਨਾਲ ਕਰਤਾਰਥ ਕਰਨਾ। ਸਾਡੇ ਭਾਰਤ ਦੇਸ਼ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਅੱਜ ਵਿਸ਼ੇਸ਼ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡਾ ਮਹਾਮਾਰੀ ਦਾ ਦੌਰ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਭਾਰਤ ਵਾਸੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਸਾਡੀ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਦੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਆਪ ਬਚਾਉਣਾ, ਸਰਬੱਤ ਦਾ ਭਲਾ ਕਰਨਾ। ਸਹੀ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਮੇਲ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਤੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਚੇਤੇ ਆਵੇ, ਨਾਨਕ ਨਾਮ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ, ਤੇਰੇ ਭਾਣੇ ਸਰਬੱਤ ਦਾ ਭਲਾ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਬੋਲੇ ਸੋ ਨਿਹਾਲ, ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ। ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ, ਗੋਡ ਬਲੈਸ ਆਲ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
Just want to say thank you to Baba Lakwinder Singh Ji from Karamjot Sikh Center and Baba Bhupinder Singh Ji from Guru Shahida in Levittown.
Those are wonderful words uttered in the Sikh faith. At this time, we would like to introduce a special individual who is representing the 15th Senate District. He was elected in 2008 after serving 7 years in New York City Council. His district covers Broad Channel, Elmhurst, Forest Hills, Ozone Park, Rego Park, and even here in Woodhaven, to name a few. Please join me in welcoming State Senator Joseph Adabo, Jr.
Good afternoon. To the family, friends, and loved ones who are here with us today because of their loss due to the COVID, my condolences and my prayers with you always. And thank you for being here. To my friend Brian and his mom, and to the committee, thank you. Thank you for your vision, allowing us to gather today. And I got to thank the committee and all the speakers who, again, gave the touching renderings and, again, their speeches. But I'm just pleased that I got here a little earlier, and I got to see the committee take painstaking detail and work. And I actually got tired watching them run around because, again, the efforts they took to make sure that this was a respectable, honorable ceremony was really to be admired. Now, again, I want to thank the committee for doing that. Thank you so much. I want to thank the 102 precinct and our volunteers at GCOP for being out there and making sure our parking lot was nice and orderly. I want to thank our Parks Department and Forest Park Trust for allowing us to be here today. I want to thank the individuals and the younger residents who did these rocks. Again, making this ceremony so important and so special. I want to thank them. I want to thank Hannah for doing the paintings. Incredible work, a God-given talent that Hannah has. And one thing I realized when looking at these paintings, I realized that these individuals that we lost, they came from many different backgrounds. They're different in gender, they're different in race, ethnic background. They come from different families. But now they're part of one family. They're part of a new family, this COVID family, that unfortunately keeps growing. But as a family, we are together. And together as a family, we move forward. It is up to us and incumbent upon us as elected officials, and I want to thank my colleagues in government who are with me today, it is incumbent upon us to help this growing family, to get them through their challenging times, again, going forward. I personally want to thank the D'Amico family. The D'Amico family opened up my eyes to a situation where their son, Fred, went into a hospital. Because he could not relay his medical condition, they were not allowed to be with him, and he passed away in the hospital. No one by his side. And I want to thank the D'Amico family because of them, there will hopefully be legislation that we are working on that will allow a caretaker, a loved one, to be with that family member in the hospital when they are suffering and they need someone with them at their time of need. And that's what it is about being part of this new family, to work together. So in the honor of those who have passed, May we still continue, yes, to wear a mask, in their honor to wash our hands, in their honor to do social distancing, in their honor to do what we need to do, that as a family and together as a community, we get to go forward and recover in their honor. Thank you very much. May God bless you all. May God bless this great city and this great country. Thank you so much.
In all of our families and communities, food brings us together. But what is the next best thing with food? There's music as well. This afternoon, as we come towards the close of our program, we would like to ask Sakai for a special rendition of Amazing Grace.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears release. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Thank you.
Our hearts are filled with grace because each song that we have sung will remind us of the special people in our hearts. And now, our families and friends who are gathered here today, we come to the closing part of our ceremony today. I would like to call on now Jennifer Romero for our closing remarks.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jennifer Romero, and I lost my mother, Mireya Vargas Cardona, on April 24th, 2020, just 2 days away from her 63rd birthday. And I also lost my father, Jose Romero, in Colombia on January 14th, 2021. My mother was such an amazing soul and so full of life. She immigrated to the US from Colombia in her 20s, and she never stopped her strong determination until she became a business owner in Queens. She strived to give me and my sister the best life. She was the best mother, the best sister, and grandmother, and was always willing to give to everyone in need in any way possible that she could. She loved to dance, party, travel. She was the life of the party and the rock to our family. It happened so fast. She was healthy and strong, and then COVID just completely took over her body. Within a week, she was placed on a ventilator, and 2 weeks later, I had to say goodbye to my mother via an iPad. It was the most painful thing I have ever endured. She was gone so fast, and we couldn't see her, we couldn't be there, we couldn't even have a service. This was unlike anything I have ever imagined, and we are broken. This virus has destroyed so many families. My parents' life mattered. All of our loved ones mattered. And they were not just a number. They were our everything. And my mission is to spread awareness on how real this pandemic is and to continue my parents' legacy. On behalf of the Queen's COVID Remembrance Day Committee and our families, we would like to thank you all for joining us in person or virtually to honor, remember, and celebrate all the lives around the world taken by COVID-19. We want to assure all those who have lost someone to COVID that even if your loved one's name is not here today in a bench or on a heart, we still grieve with you. This solemn day of reflection is meant to honor all of our loved ones, not just those from Queens, to ensure that they are not forgotten in the ever-rising death toll of the pandemic. We would like to ask you all now, those who are here with us and those watching from around the world, to take a moment of silence for the almost 150 million losses around the world. The QCRD committee would like to thank you all, those whose hard work and dedication made this day possible, especially all of our families for their unending support, our volunteers who helped us prepare each of the memorials, our clergy performers and speakers, all of our volunteer audio, video, and sound techs, our partners listed in the program, as well as those who contributed in some small way, shape, or form. Most especially, thank you to all of the families who are COVID loss survivors, who trusted us with the memory of their loved ones so that we can honor them in the empty benches you see here tonight, and the yellow hearts behind me. Our goal was to ensure that our loved ones are never forgotten, and we hope that today's memorial event will bring you all some sense of solace and comfort knowing that you continue to keep their memory alive. This concludes our opening ceremony. We invite you to also join us at 4 p.m. for our Flower Heart ceremony and at 7 p.m. for our closing sunset vigil in person or through our live streams. We now open our empty bench memorial where we invite all the residents of Queens to pay respects to our lost family, friends, and neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And I think before we actually step forward to find the various photos and names of our loved ones, I would be remiss if I did not personally acknowledge all the hardworking members of our committee. So please join me in congratulating the efforts of all the folks here today. I will name them one by one. Hannah Ernst, please rise. Hannah Karen Ernst. Alyssa Femia. Rachel Perna Femia, Lori Gonzalez, Manpreet Kaur, Chris Kocher, Pablo Lopez Jr., Siobhan Noboa, Emilu Solomon Rodriguez, Jennifer Romero, Catherine Solomon, Brian Walter, and Peg Walter. We owe so much gratitude to all of you for bringing us here today. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and we are filled with gratitude. So now, family and friends, thank you for your participation and attendance. Let us now come together and appreciate the works of art of photos of our loved ones. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.